It's time now for Morning Rounds with CBS News Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Jon LaPook and CBS News contributor Dr. Holly Phillips. First up, this year's flu season is shaping up to be a bad one. The first CDC estimates show the vaccine is just 23% effective against the virus, and even less so for adults. Holly, we've talked about this for weeks now, that this vaccine was not as effective as is typical, but 23% seems very low.
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunate. Specifically, what that means is getting vaccinated lowers the chances that you'll need to go to your doctor with symptoms of the flu by 23%. And that's an average. Vaccines, their effectiveness depends on your age. So for kids between the age of 6 and 17, the vaccine is more effective. For people over the age of 50, it's only about 14%. That's particularly upsetting because older people are more likely to end up with complications from the flu.
John, how does this compare to other years?
Well, it's lousy compared to previous years. In the last 7 years, effectiveness has averaged about 50%. And if you combine that with the fact that this is a particularly nasty strain, H3N2, this year, it's kind of a double whammy.
But Holly, I know from you, you're still telling patients, you're still telling us, get the vaccine. Is that still the recommendation?
Yeah, it really is, both for me and, of course, the CDC, because basically 23% protection is better than 0 protection, which is what you get if you don't get the vaccine.
Well, now a different kind of story about an encounter between a teenager and a police officer. John?
Vanita, a teen who had been arrested helped save the life of a police officer who had just handcuffed him.
Last September, Fort Lauderdale police officer Franklin Falks was processing Jamal Rutledge after he violated his probation. All seemed routine until Falks suddenly grabbed his chest and collapsed. His heart was about to stop. 17-year-old Rutledge, who was handcuffed, kicked the secure gate and shouted for officers. One did CPR, and another used an automated external defibrillator, or AED, to shock Falks' heart. Doctors say those actions were life-saving.
Shock advised.
That's because every minute of delay applying a shock to restart the heart lowers the odds of survival by 7 to 10%. Dr. Clifton Calloway is the vice chair of emergency medicine at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center.
If we can get an electrical shock to that person in the first few seconds or first few minutes, it has a very high chance of working.
AEDs are present in airports and many other public places, and CPR classes now show people how to use them. Instructor Sherry Fusco of the training company Emergency Skills demonstrated just how easy they are to operate.
Let's say it's time to use the AED.
Okay.
What do you do?
First thing you do is open the defibrillator and turn it on. When you turn it on, the defibrillator begins
Remove
speaking.
clothes from patient's
And you
chest.
just follow it step by step.
And what's the biggest fear that people have?
They're going to hurt someone more than they're already hurt.
And what do you tell them?
What you're doing for them is giving them their best opportunity to survive.
I love that this machine talks to you. That makes it a lot easier. Is there a way to gauge how many more lives could be saved if they're using them?
Well, it's estimated that about 50,000 lives could be saved every year.
Next, an advance in the fight against life-threatening fat. The FDA is giving the go-ahead for an implant designed to trick your brain into thinking you're full. It's the first anti-obesity device approved by the government in 8 years. Holly, how does this work?
You know, so Anthony, this really is a new and innovative approach. That makes it quite exciting. It involves putting a small sort of pacemaker-sized device into the abdomen. The device has wire leads and electrodes that attach to a nerve called the abdominal vagus nerve. Now, this nerve sends signals to the brain to tell the brain whether or not the stomach is full or empty. The device interrupts those signals, and the result is you eat less and then lose weight.
Is this for anybody who's overweight?
No. If you're just trying to lose 5 or 10 pounds, this is not for you. It's for people who are severely or morbidly obese, specifically with a body mass index of between 35 and 45.
Is it available now?
Now that it is FDA approved, I'm sure a number of surgical weight loss centers will get access to it. It's going to take some time, several years, to see if insurances decide to cover it.
All right, well, if becoming healthier is one of your New Year's resolutions, you might be one of the 45 million Americans expected to get a routine physical this year. But a top doctor is challenging that wisdom. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel writes in the New York Times, "Not having my annual physical is one small way I can help reduce healthcare costs and save myself health. Time, worry, and a worthless exam. What do you think about that, John?
Dr. Emanuel is being provocative as usual, and it's a great discussion, a national conversation to have. What he's basically saying is that when you do big studies, meta-analyses, you can't show that these routine exams, and specifically you don't have symptoms, that they decrease hospitalizations or increase how long you're going to live.
Well, a lot of people compare this to kind of a car tune-up, you know, that you're going in just to make sure everything's okay. I mean, there are actually risks with an annual exam?
There are some risks in that, you know, you may pick something up, a benign finding, you do a lot of tests that are expensive, you can have complications from testing, end up having a biopsy that has a side effect to it.
Are there any tests that are on your list for just don't skip that one?
Absolutely. You know, we really know that many, if not most, medical conditions are best managed, treated, and cured if you catch them early. If you don't get a checkup, you're not necessarily going to catch them. So prevention still matters. You should have your blood pressure checked, your cholesterol. Mammograms are important. Colonoscopies. These aren't things that we should necessarily skip, but I do think Dr. Emanuel is being provocative in making us think just about the sort of rote or routine physical.
And I've got to push back, though. Right. Because I'm an internist, Holly's an internist, right? And it takes time to build a relationship with a patient. And over the years, maybe even if there's nothing wrong, you get to know about them, their family, what's normal for them, so that one day when they come in and suddenly the hairs on the back of your neck are standing up. You don't quite know why. That intuition. I know it's not evidence-based medicine. I've learned to trust that, and you can't get that unless you really get to know the patient.
Well, and the more you see a patient, the more you may understand when something is not quite right.
Very much so. And it's really, you know, it's something that patients need. You know, all of a sudden you'll find yourself at 3 in the morning saying, oh, I've got to call my doctor. And then you realize you don't have a doctor. Yeah. You know, so that's one of the things where it really matters to build this relationship. Yeah.
All right, finally, a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association finds the rate of investment growth in U.S. medical research dropped from 2004 to 2012 to just 0.8%. It happened as worldwide investment in research, especially by China, was increasing. This is pretty disappointing news, isn't it?
To me, this is tragic. When you think about the last 4 or 5 decades, how medical research has completely transformed some illnesses. Cancers that used to be, you know, death sentences can now be treated, managed early. HIV was a fatal illness. Now, in many cases, it can be a chronic illness, and there's even hope on the horizon for a cure. That doesn't happen without research.
And if you need a reminder, we're coming off an Ebola outbreak, which is still going on in West Africa. And we've had a cut in research. People said, where's the vaccine? Where's the treatment? Where was the research dollars? If we had had those, maybe we would have had a vaccine in hand when the epidemic broke out.
Dr. Jon LaPook, Dr. Holly Phillips, thank you both very much.